Hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Lindsay.
And this is Hustle from the Heart, a podcast where we have conversations about heart-led decision making. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How you feeling this evening?
It's been a long day, but I'm feeling a lot better. You know, naps are just amazing, especially for us adults.
Yeah.
Everybody should nap.
You love a nap.
I am a good napper.
You are a great napper.
I'm like, I'm going to go lay down for a nap. And I mean, sometimes it turns into a whole affair, you know, it's like an hour.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
I'm so glad. I know that you've had, you know, since we moved in together, you've had a hard time like letting yourself go and take naps. And I'm really glad that lately you've really let yourself do that. And I'm really glad because I know that it helps you.
Yeah. If I don't, I'm kind of a mess. If I try to push through the tiredness, or I've had a heavy day or something, especially emotionally, I find when my emotions are heavy that a nap is a good reset for me.
Yeah, that's good. Sleep is so good for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
That's why that's the greatest tool for recovery and
Absolutely.
in all ways.
Yeah. And I think it's that's a good lead into what we're talking about today, because sleep and taking a nap is a great tool for regulating and helping ourselves get through, you know, challenging times.
You've had challenging times the last probably 24 to 36 hours.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 24 to 36 years. That would be accurate.
Well, that too. But in particular, more like recent history, the last like 24 to 36 hours have been, been
pretty challenging.
Yeah.
So we wanted to chat about holding space, because in the midst of the challenge, there's still this very wonderful, happy life that I'm living. And so today? I think I was telling you that it's interesting when I can hold space for both. Like I can feel both happy and sad or upset at the same time, and how it's very interesting to hold space for both of those things.
Yeah. Well, I would say, so today, yes, you talked about it in that context of like, I'm really letting myself hold that space for both of those things. And you talked about that you're feeling proud of yourself about it. And also over the last few months, you've brought it up where you've said, I have so much to be grateful for. I'm so happy. I have this partnership, this love that I've been wanting. It's everything. And I also am grieving, and I'm feeling, you've said I'm feeling uncomfortable in my body with both, like having both of those things be there. So you were like, I want to be like, I'm in a mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember saying that a lot.
Yeah. Well, but then you were stopping yourself too. One day you said, I woke up, I was like, and you said, I was like, oh, my brain was like, I'm in a mood. And I went, no. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like a whole thing you had inside yourself.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely interesting to see the shift in that moment of finding what things I've really asked for in life to come to fruition, you know, especially in my personal life and my love life, and to have a lot of those needs met, and then to still be grieving something that was, you know,
beautiful and
such a
real
big part of my life.
Yeah,
you know,
in its own ways.
And holding space for that at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time in my life that I've done that I've had to navigate being sad and extremely happy at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild.
I can imagine. I mean, I think all of us have moments where we feel those two dichotomies, and not necessarily happy and sad at the same time, but grateful and a sense of longing, or joy and anger, or just, you know, two like opposing, what we would see like as opposing feelings or emotions coming up in our bodies. And it can be overwhelming or uncomfortable. And also, when you let there be space for both, beautiful, I would say. And kind of like neat. What an acknowledgement of your life, of the full experience of you and all that you have lived and all that you are living. What a moment to be like, wow, I have these two things, and I'm grieving this, and I'm also living this other thing. And yeah, what a way to honor your life.
Yeah. I guess I didn't see it in that way, you know. I was just always like, this is so confusing, you know. Oh,
well, when you're the person in it, it's confusing.
Like today I'm crying, and then like, or, you know, 30 minutes ago I was having a, you know, release of some kind, and now, you know, and then I'm like really happy, and then I'm sad. The ups and downs of that. And I think we were talking about this as just in the last 24 hours of having a hard situation come up, that having the tools to navigate getting through those moments, that, you know, even when life's going good, I mean, you know, there's always going to be a curveball, you know, at some point. I mean, that's just how life is. You just never know, because everyone is operating from their own emotional, I don't know, center standpoint that's not necessarily always in alignment with where you are. So having the tools to be able to get through those moments is everything.
Yeah.
Like, that is what ultimately helps.
Yeah. And that not just having the tools or the skills, but accessing them, letting yourself reach for them, and knowing that, okay, one tool might not work in this particular situation for this moment. It doesn't mean that that is an ineffective tool for me forever and ever more. It just means that particular tool didn't get the job done for this particular thing in this moment in my life. And thank goodness I have others. I'm going to turn to the others and you know, keep reaching for them.
When looking at tools, what would you think? What would you say are some tools that you use when navigating hard situations?
Good question. There are many that I will tap into for different things. Movement, exercise is one of my tools every day that I use to just regulate, even from the start of my day. It's so helpful. And reading, meditating, deep breathing, taking a shower. I'm very independent in the way that I live my life, which is probably a total shock to you. I don't ask for a lot of help. I struggle with reaching out to other people for help. I just have never really had that as an option.
A new tool for you, would that be communicating your... Yeah. Like having someone to communicate what's going on inside? Because I know with what I've had going on in this last 24 hours has affected you as well, because you've had to see me go through something that was emotionally upsetting for me. Yeah. And so, yeah, I found it interesting that was almost like a new thing for you to be like, oh, wow, okay, this is a tool that I can use, and just being given the opportunity.
Yeah. And I do want to backtrack and say that I said it's never discounting the people in my life who have shown up for me and held that space. It just was not my number one thing. More of my adult life than not, I've lived alone. I, as a child, like, having emotions and feelings wasn't a thing that we were really allowed to have. So it was like a lot of this stuff was coming from inside. Like, there was a lot of internal care going on. And then as an adult, just definitely like, okay, I run my life. I take care of everything. I do the keeping. Now I'm in a relationship, and I mean, I have friends and people, like, when I reach out to people, they do show up. And it's not my first go-to. So I was having my own experience yesterday with the stuff that you were carrying. And
I could clearly see that it was upsetting you.
yeah, well, and you kept asking, and my brain, in my head, I'm like, this is not your job to help me process how I'm feeling about this while you're trying to process your own stuff. And so for me, I was like really trying to navigate that internally. And we sat down to eat dinner, and I realized, because you kept checking in to see, like, is you okay? And I knew that you could tell that something, because you kept bringing it up, and I don't want to keep you out in the dark or anything, because that's the thing where you're like, when you don't talk to me, I feel like I'm on the outside of your experience, and I don't want to be there. And so I told you that I just said, do you have a minute to talk about this? And you're very gracious, like, of course. And so I just kind of shared with you how I was feeling, and that I didn't want to put any of that on you. And you received it so lovingly and openly, and I just really appreciated that. And so, yeah, that is definitely a new tool that I will put in my kit, especially the way that we navigated it, you know, the way that we had that conversation. I think I was really proud of myself for just doing that, and I felt really grateful that you said, I can hold this space for you and not take it on. And I think that's really important in a relationship, any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, platonic friendship, sibling, whatever that might be, parent to child, is know that we can hold space for somebody else and what they're going through, and it not be ours to carry and hold. So to hear you say that, I was like, oh, okay. So by me sharing this, I'm not giving it to you. I'm just bringing you into my feeling, so we can move through, like, navigate this together.
Yeah. I share the same tools as you do. I feel taking a walk is definitely on the top of my list. Meditating, breathing, felt like in the realm of this 24-hour crazy emotional time. I also had a horrible nightmare last night. It was just so terrifying that when I woke up, I had to consciously come into my breath and help myself through, like, panic. With your help, I knew in that moment, okay, like, yes, I can breathe and I can do all these things, but I knew at the same time too that the other tool, I needed to wake you up and be like, I need to be comforted right now because this is really, really intense. And then we proceeded to use, other tools that we know how to use, because it was like just a really scary, nightmarish dream. So we got the sage, and you smudged me and you in the bed, in the room, and the other parts of the house. So it was really nice to have that, and I grabbed the crystals I knew would be beneficial for me, and I was able to just talk about it. You helped me write down what my dream was, so that I didn't have to think about it anymore. Right? I didn't have to process it last night, but we've talked about it today, and I think that having those tools to just get it out, we smudged it out, I got my crystals, and then I was between you, offering a lot of loving support, I was able to fall back asleep okay, without any problem. Yeah, I think that knowing ahead of time, I think we talked about, in the future, if that were to happen again, what would be the ideal situation, or what would be those tools? I love how you sprung into action and you're like, we need a sage. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I appreciated that, because I think it's hard for the other person. I think that's why talking about it ahead of time is helpful. Then we both kind of know what's that will help the other person. But you just kind of knew intuitively what needed to be done.
Well, what was helpful was I've had my own moments where I've woken up. A few weeks ago, I had that panic attack in the middle of the night. I don't know if it was a panic attack night, or was the night when I thought that there was some sort of evil spirit lurking in the room or something. And you were just I was like, there is an energy in here that we did not invite in, and it is terrifying and it needs to leave. And you were like, do you want me to smudge you? And I was like, I was so scared I couldn't move. And so I said, no, I just want it out of this room, get it out. And so then we practiced a different tool, but I wouldn't have thought to do that at 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
Had you not mentioned it at another point in time. And had that not been something that we normally do in our home, just kind of routinely to keep the energy maintained, the good energy that we want to have here.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like having those tools, having those conversations about the different things that we've each tried in the past. So I think for me, with not only the conversations we have about the tools that we can use in those moments, but it's just the routine nature of some of these things. Like I mentioned, we sage our home as just a practice. We both meditate. We each have different deep breathing techniques that we know work for us. Last night, it was fascinating to watch you get back into your breath. You were trying to do the box breath. You were struggling with doing it, and you really had to be conscious about it. I could tell that you were really doing that. And I had this thought of, in the past, when I was developing those tools, and maybe I would like to know if this was similar for you, is that there have been moments where it's not working immediately, and I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that anymore because it didn't work.
Huh. Yeah, I've found that the breath is the one thing that I have to get in check before I can do anything else. Because if I don't, that can send me into like a panic. And so finding that breath and getting myself regulated, and then assessing the situation and being like, okay, what's the next thing? Getting my breath regulated last night completely calmed me down, which I think breath work and breathing, like our breath is, how we live, and like that's our life force. And if we can get that under control in moments, and I think can be extremely helpful.
It was pretty neat to watch you find it. Sad. I hated having to see you go through that, because you are so natural at it. It's something you are so skilled at, that you do so regularly, not only personally, but you teach your clients that, and you do that in classes with people. But to watch your persistence with it, your patience with yourself through it. And I think that is so loving. Just despite the fact that you were clearly very frightened, and your brain was probably scattered, and you were trying, you couldn't talk. Your body kept shaking. You were trying to really get yourself grounded. Despite that stuff going on, somewhere inside of you, I'm confident, I'm certain that there was probably a voice that was like, this works, this is like, you are going to do this. And you you stayed with it until it happened, until it clicked. And I think that that's incredible.
Well, I found that with my clients too, with my Reiki clients, when we're moving through something really difficult and challenging in the body, and then their body starts to react, or there's fear that comes up, and the energy is trying to move, the breath is the only thing that helps get through that moment. Breathing deeply, deep breaths, in through the nose and out through the mouth. It just changes the energy, in our body. It just is reassuring our body that, like, we're okay. I'm in control. It's really, really interesting. Breath work is, for sure.
I mean, I'm curious. So if we take it to the podcast, like Hustle from the Heart, Heart-Led Living, that kind of stuff. How do you see your tools, or the tools that we're now, creating the toolkit, that we each have our own toolkits, but then we're creating one as a unit. How do you see your tools being connected to that? Like, you're very dedicated to living a heart-led life. So how do your tools factor into that?
I use my tools in that way of pausing. Meditation allows me the mindfulness to stop before reacting. My breath allows me to regulate also before reacting, or just like in this really hard period within this, the last couple of days, where I'm still in the midst of being happy, and then I'll have a moment where I'm really angry or I'm really upset, and then I'll be like, okay, come back to yourself, come back to your body. After moving through those moments that are hard, finding that homeostasis within myself just helps me to be able to navigate life from that heart space, so that I can check in with myself and say, okay, is this how I want to react? Is this the emotion that I want to feel? Do I want to act on this? How deep am I going to let myself go with this? Do I need to grieve? Do I need to pause and meditate and do a meditation to where I can just cry it out? I think it's just a matter of like checking in with your body, figuring out what works in that moment. What about you in that same space, in that heart space?
When I go through something that is frustrating, difficult, challenging, painful, whatever that might be, I tend to ruminate on things and just go back through it multiple times over and over and over again. And I've developed a practice of saying, am I proud of how I navigated that? And if I can say yes, then I let it go. And if the answer yes, and there was that one thing that I would do differently, then I ask myself, okay, there was that one thing. What do you need to do to rectify it, to repair it? And how can you change moving forward? Or sometimes it'll be like, yeah, no, I'm not very proud of how I navigated that situation, and I definitely would have done something differently. I've noticed that always it is because I have just reacted. I didn't respond. And that came from a place of usually my ego being hurt or like my feelings being hurt. And I wasn't in my core self, like living from like my genuine place of very calm, curious, open, compassionate, that kind of place. That is my homeostasis now. I have developed that being the place that I come back to, very open and welcoming and loving. I always want to be that kind of light in the world. And if the answer is no, then I figure, what do I need to do to prepare that? And how can I change it next time?
And what could you learn from it?
Yeah. And tapping into my tools in the moment ahead of time. When I do that looking back on it, when I do that reflection, 100% of the time when I say, yes, I'm proud of how I handled that, my tools I used prior to. So my tools put me back into myself, took me out of the reactive state, put me back into my loving heart, openness, and allowed me to say, okay, this situation is not acceptable, and there is a way that I can address it that doesn't have to be like fiery and, you know, what was the thing that I said recently was my rage makes me want to burn.
Oh, scorched earth.
Scorched earth, yeah.
Scorched
This doesn't make me go scorched earth. You don't have to, you know. You
pop off in the moment.
Yes, it doesn't have to be a scorched earth moment. So that's how I use my tools to maintain that heart-led.
And I think one of the most important things is having some type of loving support, whether it's your partner, a friend, or a coworker, like whoever. Have somebody that you can have as a sounding board if needed. Not that they have to take it on, but just have somebody there in your corner. Because I know a lot of times when I'm going through things, and you'll help me kind of like workshop, what does it look like if you were to do this, or you know, what do you want to say, or how does that feel? And then I can invite people to do that on their own too, to take the time to workshop, to take a pause, because when we react, in the moment sometimes we regret something that we've said. Having loving support, I think, is really big.
If you are a single person or you don't have that loving support, because that is the reality for many people. I know that myself, I had moments in my life where I definitely didn't feel like I had that loving support.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really had to step into a healthy relationship with people, and it was mostly my friends and sister, brother-in-law. I would do a lot of writing or typing because it's easy to type, and then give myself time. So it's like, I don't have to send that right now. I don't have to fire off that text message immediately. I can give myself 20 minutes. I can give myself 2 days if I need to respond. If it was ever an in-person conversation or a phone conversation, knowing that you absolutely have the permission to say, I need some time to process this. That's okay. One of the most empowering tools I have, and I've been very fortunate that I've had some managers, one in particular, she would tell me, like, share news about work stuff with me, and then she would say, what are your thoughts? And I would just say to her, can I have some time to think about that, and then I'll get back to you. And her answer was, I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I would type up a message and send her a message later on. And I was like, I really appreciate how thoughtful you are about providing feedback. That really helped me gain the confidence to know that I can say that to anybody. And anyone who gives me that space is a safe person. And anyone who doesn't, like, that's my answer. Is like, oh, you don't, this conversation has to happen. No, it doesn't. And then you can just walk away or hang up. And I know that's not always the case because it can be unsafe and sometimes, but just practicing that, especially with safe people, that can be really helpful. And just knowing that we do have the permission to advocate for ourselves.
I've definitely had to learn that with you, like, because there's been times where you're like, I need to take a walk, or I need to, step away to have some time to process. And I'm such a, figure outer right in the moment, and I want to, talk through something. And you're like, I need to have a minute to process this. And so I'm really learning is, not that that's a bad thing, that somebody's going to, leave or, because they're not figuring it out in the moment, or that it's really healthy for somebody to be able to process, because then it almost helps you out because they're able to process their stuff in the moment without it turning into a fight or something. So they might realize something on their end that maybe they could have done too, or, vice versa.
I remember one time shortly after we moved in together, and we had a moment, and you, rightly so, called me out on something, turned that mirror on me, and I was so upset, and I couldn't regulate myself. And you were like, "Do you want to go outside and sit down in the patio area?" I was like, "Yeah, but I need to take a walk. I just need to spend a few minutes by myself because I need to figure out what's going on inside my brain." And in the walk, I was just going to shut down, and then I was like, no, go take a walk. And during the walk, what came up for me was I was so embarrassed, and I came back and I told you, and we had a really nice conversation. And I think to be able to do that, to be able to give yourself that space, or to be able to give myself that space, and that you were willing to be like, okay. And you just went over, and I think you had Ellie with you, the dog, and you're like, we'll just hang out over here. And it's a gift that we give ourselves, and it's an act of kindness and love that we can show another person to respect that and to say, okay. I mean, of course, it takes a healthy relationship, healthy communication, some confidence within yourself and in the relationship that you're in, whether it's a friendship, romantic, whatever that might be. But ultimately, knowing that that's what you need, and that is what will help you stay in that loving center of yourself. It's everything, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
I think that having tools for any situation in life is a good idea. So what is my backup plan? A tragedy or grief or anger? What is my go-to? What's in my toolkit? Is it breath work, meditation, punching a punching bag, or going on a run, a walk, calling a friend? What is in place? I think those things are very important to have an idea of, what am I going to do? But in your everyday practicing, right, building that. And I think that once we practice every day, that becomes a part of the moment. We've already done it. We've been doing the breath work. We've been doing the meditation, which then just naturally plays into the moment. And you don't have to scramble in a way. You're like, okay, I've already done this. So what we are preaching here is do the breath work, do the meditation, do the mindfulness practices. I'm a huge advocate of all of those things in order to just help you just navigate life in an easier way. And I think ultimately those things are what has gotten me to this healthy place, to be able to manage emotions and sitting with feelings and, knowing that it's going to pass, and knowing that I have the ability for it to move through me and just transform into something that's more beautiful, because usually there's always something great on the other side, whether it's something new that you learn about yourself. It may look like losing a relationship, but so much more is gained and learned from that experience. So again, it's not judging the bad with the good. It's just okay, these are like these are the shadows, that are coming up. This is my shadow part of myself or someone else's. And how is that play with what's going on in my everyday life? And how do I balance both that happiness and that darkness that is just normal?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about allowing ourselves to hold space for those, I mean, I don't want to call feelings good or bad. So like the pleasant or the unpleasant, the painful versus the joyful ones. When you have that experience of, I am so happy and grateful because I have this amazing thing in my life and I've got a lot of very positive things happening for me. And I'm also grieving whatever that might be, or I'm feeling a sense of frustration. We do not have to silver line the grief or the frustration, the anger, the hurt by saying like, but I have so much to be grateful for, so I'm not going to go there, because we discredit our experience. We shut down a part of our humanity and ourselves. We turn ourselves off to a part of ourselves. And it is so possible, it happens all the time, to have both. We can be both grateful and sorrowful. We can be both very happy about one thing and really pissed off about something else. It is totally possible. And we don't have to discredit the pain or the frustrations or the suffering in our life because we have a lot to be grateful for. That is toxic positivity.
It's just, like you said, it's good to just be in that and feel it.
Yeah. I have learned, and it took many years of therapy, that when we don't let ourselves feel the pain, is it doesn't go anywhere. It stays stuck within us and it comes back up because it wants to be seen. The anger wants to be seen because it wants out. Like that's all it is it is a part of ourself, like begging for attention, and it will continue to come up and come up and come up until we say like, I see you, I hear you.
How do you want to come out? How do you want to be expressed? I feel like sometimes, whether that's crying, punching something, screaming, running, whatever it may be. Yeah, there's a way that it wants to be expressed.
Yeah. And that by having a wide variety of tools, and I mean, the breath cannot be understated. The power of our breath cannot be understated. By going back to that place, we really can put ourselves into that wise, compassionate, patient part of ourselves that allows us to discern when that part of ourselves that wants to be seen in a reactive way, when that desired reaction is going to be helpful or going to be harmful. And so by being back in those tools, or by utilizing those tools, we can really put ourselves back in a space to say, I see this and I'm going to do something about it, and I'm going to do something about it in a way that I can reflect on in the future and say I'm proud of that. I hope that you're really proud of yourself, honey, to be able to say like, I'm happy and I'm grieving today and I'm okay with that. You did not bright side anything. You just let it be and you flowed like the river. You just were like,
I did.
Yeah.
So
use your tools. That's build your toolkit, and your tools are going to be different from ours. We have tools that are different from each other's, and we have some that we're building together. And a thing that is exciting to you or of interest to you is to be like, I want a toolkit for myself. I want a toolkit for my partnership. I want a toolkit for my family. I mean, I have different toolkits for different friendships, and different relationships. My sister and I have our own unspoken toolkit, and it's just like...
It's like when somebody knows this person's needs and people can move into action and support.
Yeah. Give yourself the opportunity to be heard and seen, not only by you, but by other people who you want to let see and know you and hear you. And give those other people the opportunity to say, like, I got you. Make that part of your toolkit, too. I think that's really valuable. It's all important. Whatever tools you put in your toolkit, as long as they're, like, not destructive or harmful to yourself or other people.
Absolutely.
We co-sign them.
We do. Build your kit.
Yeah.
Be ready.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you found something in this that resonated with you, take the things that do land with you and run with them if that's what you want to do. And anything that didn't feel like a right fit, just know that that's okay and you can leave it right here on this podcast. Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook.
Our website, Energy Healing, Health and Wellness Coaching at wellwithinstudio.com.
Yeah.
You guys have a great day.
Take it easy.